The Fugitive is directed by Andrew Davis and stars Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones. It was based off of a television show, and it is still one of the best thrillers ever made. Dr. Richard Kimball, unjustly accused of murdering his wife, must find the real killer while being the target of a nationwide manhunt led by a seasoned U.S. Marshal. As a kid, I recorded The Fugitive off of television onto a blank VHS tape probably a dozen times. I don't even know how many times. This film was watched over and over again because somebody would always record over my tape and I'd be like, where's my copy of The Fugitive? I need to watch it right now. And I watched it a billion times as a kid. Once I was old enough for my parents to let me watch PG-13's Uncut, I got that VHS and I watched it another billion times. As an adult, I've watched it over and over, and I've shown it to friends who've never seen it before, and I've sat there while watching them, waiting for my favorite parts just to see their reaction. It's always really great. And I just watched the somewhat new 4K release for the first time, and I am so excited to talk about this movie because it is still one of my all-time favorites. The Fugitive came out in 1993, and it was an absolute smash hit. This movie made over $300 million worldwide. Now that's really good. In 93, that's amazing. And it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, which is unprecedented for a genre movie like this, a thriller that audiences have embraced, that did really well at the box office to get that much recognition from the Academy, and Tommy Lee Jones actually walked away with a gold statue himself for Best Supporting Actor. This doesn't happen anymore. It didn't happen back then. This movie is legendary now, but in the 90s, this was unmissable. It was everywhere. It had a huge cultural footprint. Leslie Nielsen did an entire parody movie of this called Wrongfully Accused. Even Jim Carrey got a joke in.
You're under arrest.
No, it wasn't me. It was the one-armed man.
When it comes to pacing, The Fugitive is one of the best ever. If you're writing a thriller, directing a thriller, or an action movie, you've got to study this thing. It flies. The characters are always in movement, and when they're not literally chasing each other, they're trying to solve this case, and you can watch people think a lot more than you might actually expect in The Fugitive, which is one of my favorite things to do in movies, is to just look at someone figuring something out quietly. It's underrated as fuck. But on that pacing, I really want to talk about the edit because I think The Fugitive is one of the best edited movies I've ever seen. In particular, the first 20 minutes. There is so much information to sift through here. You have to meet Richard Kimball, understand what he does for a living. He's a doctor. Understand that he cares about his wife. They love each other. It's a happy marriage. You see him with his associates. You understand his backstory. You see the murder. You understand that it wasn't his fault. There was someone else there. You see the police interrogation. You see his courtroom proceedings. You see him transported to jail. And there's a massive train wreck all in the first 16 minutes. That is truly impeccable editing work. And that pace set the tone for the rest of the movie, which feels like 100 minutes, even though it's actually 130. To this day, at least in the thriller genre, I don't know that I've seen a more efficient first 15 minutes. On the special features of the Blu-ray, which by the way, it's really great to actually have special features on the Blu-ray where there's a great making of, the director talks about the first time that Harrison Ford saw the interrogation scene where he breaks down crying saying, "You find this man." And apparently Harrison Ford just kind of embraced Andrew Davis, the director, and gave him a kiss and was like, this is it. You understand what this movie needs to be, because that interrogation sequence establishes so much sympathy for this character. And that sympathy is so integral to this movie working, because if you had a shred of doubt in your mind about whether or not he was innocent or guilty, the movie would not work as well as it does. You have to fully believe that this man is innocent. And the best case in point for that is this film's spinquel, U.S. Marshals, which, by the way, is actually a pretty solid movie, but it is nowhere near as good as The Fugitive. And in that movie, Wesley Snipes plays the person that Tommy Lee Jones is hunting. And that film tries to sort of give you some doubt for a while about his position in this supposed crime. You understand that he may have been innocent. He claims that he's innocent, but there's enough evidence stacked against him, and the film is not exactly definitive about what he did or about giving you details about the crime. And so you're kind of left wondering until the midpoint. And it doesn't work quite as well, although U.S. Marshals, like I said, not a bad movie. With The Fugitive, you really had to believe that Kimball did not do it. And just by his reaction in the interrogation scene while that camera is booming down, you're immediately on his side. I do want to talk about that train wreck because it is still, to this day, absolutely stunning. It uses a combination of a real train that is moving right next to Harrison Ford as he runs, as well as excellent miniature work, and I really miss great miniatures in film. We need more of that. In fact, I think that's actually the most invisible effects work that you could ever have in a movie. Did you know The Dark Knight has miniatures? Look it up. Inception does. The Lord of the Rings trilogy does. Many people do not realize how great miniature work can be. And I want to bring it back. More people need to be doing it. There's also a bit of an urban legend in regards to this scene. Kind of like the 3 men and a baby ghost. There was a face seen in early VHS cuts of The Fugitive looking down at him after this train wreck. And in the standard VHS quality days, we used to pause that and wonder what in the hell that was. I did not see that face in the 4K Blu-ray, so I can only assume that they have fixed that. More than likely it was a crew member or someone who wasn't supposed to be in frame who ended up in frame.
And there's an upshot, and there is a man looking in the camera. And I've never seen him before in my life. And he's been there for 7 years now. And looking at, when I saw on this big monitor, I said, and he just moved his head ever so slightly. He's wearing a hat. And I said, what is that? Where did that come from? Well, we took him out. He's gone in digital. He doesn't live there anymore. He lives somewhere else. He lives in the digital world.
But it did cause a lot of people back in the days of low quality VHS with TV scan lines to wonder, what is that face? This guy included. As good as Harrison Ford is in this movie, Tommy Lee Jones is his equal in every way. It makes perfect sense that he alone got his own movie after this because he is truly fantastic here. He is a bull, an absolute force of nature. There's a scene where one of his fellow marshals is being attacked by someone and Tommy Lee Jones kills that man even though his face is just inches away from his buddies. And later on, he walks up to his traumatized friend that he just saved and says,
"Can you hear what I'm saying now?"
Yeah. I don't bargain.
That's all you need to know about this guy. He's a dog that's gonna bite and not let go. When he's chasing Kimball later on and he has an opportunity to get a few shots off at him, he does. He takes those shots despite the fact that he might have a little bit of doubt about Kimball by this point in the movie, whether or not he really did it. When people ask me what are some of my favorite supporting characters in movies, he is one of the first people I often think of.
Well, don't you say strange or weird? I mean, hinky, that has no meaning.
We say hinky.
I don't want you guys using words around me that got no meaning. I'm taking the stairs and walking.
Also in the supporting cast, Joe Pantoliano, who I love, Bound, The Matrix. He's in so many great movies. Why can't I have more movies with him? Where's he been? He is so good. I need more movies with him. Please, show up in more movies, man. One of the most famous scenes in the movie is when Harrison Ford first comes face to face with Tommy Lee Jones in a sewer. And he says, "I didn't kill my wife." Tommy Lee Jones's response,
I don't care!
replaced pages of dialogue. This is not the first time this has ever happened in a Harrison Ford movie. Of course, we think about the famous sequence in Raiders of the Lost Ark where he just shoots the guy with the swords instead of actually fighting him. In this movie, they looked at multiple pages of dialogue, Ford and Jones, and said, what if we just did this? You hear stories sometimes of actors overstepping their bounds and writers pulling their hair out because the actor just doesn't understand the script and they're ruining my script and they're ruining the movie. When you hear about stories like this, though, you realize that these are two guys who really should be A-list because they get it. They might not be credited writers, but they understand the story and they care about their characters and they're thinking of their characters at a very high level. Speaking of that scene, there's a great moment right afterwards where Jones and the fellow marshals are wandering around the sewers because they have no idea how to get out. This is so funny and so smart. In a lesser movie, they would have just walked out of some opening somewhere. But the fact that they're like, how do we get out of here? Where the fuck are we? That is so smart. The film also has a lot of people showing up who were not famous yet, like Jane Lynch, for instance, as well as Julianne Moore. And a great way this movie builds tension is to always have Kimball be around police. Sometimes he doesn't want to be, like when he gets in this elevator and he notices a cop and looks down, and suddenly then the elevator is flooded with even more cops. He rarely gets a chance to just sit somewhere and just breathe for a moment. And even when he does, like when he rents an apartment Unfortunately, the cops find out that the dude he rented from is a drug dealer, and so the cops are right outside his window even there. The chase sequence that leads into the St. Paddy's Day parade is everything that you hope a movie is when you look at the cover and a critic said that it was white-knuckled or something, or edge of your seat. And you watch it and it's like, yeah, it was all right. I actually sat in the middle of my seat during that movie. I don't think that critic was right. When Jones thinks he sees Ford and just calls him by his name, making him instinctually look up at him, that is genius writing. Truly. I mean, it's so simple. Once Kimball finally does find the man who killed his wife, a man with a prosthetic limb, and they fight on a subway, I wish that I had had the experience of being in a theater in 1993, because I am positive that every time he punches this guy, the audience just went wild. At the end of the day, for me, the dynamic here between Jones and Ford is almost as palpable as that of Pacino and De Niro in Heat. That's how much I love this movie. That's how much those actors ignite this screen. And Andrew Davis and his editors and his writers and everyone who made this movie did just such a phenomenal job. It has stood the test of time for so many years now, and it will continue to. If you guys have never seen The Fugitive, holy shit, I am jealous of you. Go watch it. It is an absolute blast. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to watch Feature Presentation. Look forward to more videos very soon. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.